The stars were cold and silent. Admiral Park Yuna stood on the bridge of her ship, the Defiance, and looked out at the darkness. She had been a soldier for 30 years. She had seen many things, but she had never seen anything like the fleet that was coming toward them now. 700 ships. The number was hard to believe. Her own fleet had only 37 vessels. They were like a small group of fish facing a whale. No, not a whale. A monster. The Keth Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had enslaved dozens of species. And now they wanted something from humanity. They wanted the Veleth. 40,000–7,000 Veleth refugees lived on the planet below. They had escaped from Keth's slave ships. They had crossed the darkness of space in broken vessels. Many had died on the journey. The ones who survived had found safety in human space. They had found Refuge-7. Commander Kong Taiho walked up beside the Admiral. He was a tall man with gray in his hair and calm eyes. He had served with Park Yuna for 15 years. He knew her better than anyone. Admiral, he said quietly. The Keth diplomatic vessel is requesting communication. Park Yuna did not move. She kept looking at the stars. Put them through, she said. The main screen flickered to life. A face appeared. It was not human. The Keth were tall beings with 4 eyes and gray skin like stone. This one wore golden robes and many chains of office. His name was Virith, and he was the high emissary of the Empire. Humans, Virith said. His voice was deep and cold. I speak for the Keth Empire. I speak for the Emperor himself. You have stolen our property. 47,000 Veleth slaves escaped to your space. You gave them shelter. This is a crime against the Empire. Park Yuna turned to face the screen. Her face showed nothing. They are not property, she said. They are people. Broth made a sound like rocks grinding together. It might have been laughter. They are Veleth. The Veleth have been slaves of the Empire for 800 years. This is the natural order. This is the law of the galaxy. Your human ideas do not matter here. They matter to us, Park Yuna said. The bridge was very quiet. Every officer watched the screen. They could feel the weight of the moment. This was not just a conversation. This was the beginning of something terrible, or something great. They did not know which. Varath leaned forward. All 4 of his eyes focused on the Admiral. You have 72 hours, he said. Return our property. Every single Veleth. If you do not, the fleet behind me will destroy your ships. We will take the Veleth by force. And we will burn your worlds as punishment for your crime. He paused. You cannot win this fight. You know this. Be wise. Be practical. Surrender the slaves and live. Park Yuna was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her fleet. 37 ships against 700. She thought about the people on Refuge 7. Humans and Veleth. Together. Families. Children. She thought about what it would mean to hand them over. To put chains on people who had finally found freedom. She could not do it. She would not do it. High Emissary, she said. Her voice was steady and clear. I have heard your demands. Now hear my answer. She took one step closer to the screen. These people came to us asking for help. They came to us asking for freedom. We gave them both. They are under our protection now. They will stay under our protection. Wrath's 4 eyes narrowed. You are making a terrible mistake, perhaps, Park Yuna said. But it is our mistake to make. If you want these people, you will have to come and take them. You will have to go through us. She looked directly into the emissary's eyes. Come try. The transmission ended. The screen went dark. The bridge was silent. Commander Kong let out a long breath. Admiral, he said quietly. You just told the largest empire in the galaxy to come and fight us. Yes, Park Yuna said. I did. We have 37 ships. I know. They have 700. I know that too. Kong Taiho looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Then we better get ready. Died. Park Yuna turned to her crew. These were good people. Brave people. They had families back home. They had lives they wanted to return to. but not one of them looked away. Not one of them seemed afraid. "All ships to battle stations," she ordered. "Begin defensive formations around the planet. I want every weapon online and every shield at full power." The bridge came alive with activity. Officers ran to their posts. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. Park Yuna walked to the communication station. "Open a secure channel to Earth," she said. The young officer at the station looked up at her. "What message, Admiral?" Park Yuna thought for a moment. Then she said, "Tell them, the line is drawn here. We will not move it." She looked back at the viewport. The Keth fleet was still far away, but it was coming. 700 ships carrying death in chains. And standing between them and the people they wanted to enslave was her little fleet. 37 ships. A few thousand humans. It was not enough. It could never be enough. But it would have to be. Because some things were more important than winning. Some things were more important than survival. Some things you had to fight for. Even when you knew you could not win. Freedom was one of those things, Admiral. Park Yuna turned away from the stars and went to prepare for war. They came like a storm of metal and fire. 700 Keth warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Refuge 7 system. They blotted out the stars. They filled every screen on every human ship with their terrible presence, Admiral. Park Yuna stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched them come. Her heart was beating fast, but her face was calm. She had trained her whole life for moments like this. She was ready. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Commander Kong Tai-ho said. His voice was steady. "Defensive formation is complete. Shields are at full power," Good Park Yuna said. "Let them see us. Let them see that we are not running." The Keth fleet stopped, just outside weapon range. For a long moment, nothing happened. Two fleets faced each other across the darkness. One was massive, overwhelming, unstoppable. The other was small, defiant, and very human. A communication signal came through. Admiral Park nodded, and the main screen lit up with the face of Grand Admiral Kethfer, Supreme Commander of the Invasion Fleet. He was old for a Keth, his gray skin cracked like ancient stone. He had crushed rebellions on 100 worlds. He had never lost a battle. "Human Admiral," he said. His voice was like thunder from far away. "I give you one final chance. Surrender. Return the slaves. I will let your ships leave in peace. This is more mercy than you deserve." Park Yuna looked at him for a long moment. She thought about all the things she could say. All the grand speeches about freedom and justice. But in the end, she decided words were not enough. Actions would speak louder. She turned to Lieutenant Shin Murray. "Fire the main cannon," she ordered. "Target the Grand Admiral's ship." Shin Murray did not hesitate. Her fingers moved across the controls. A beam of blue energy shot from the Defiance, crossing the empty space between the fleets. It hit the shields of Kethfer's flagship, doing little damage but sending a clear message. Park Yuna looked back at the screen. "That is my answer. Kethfer's." Four eyes widened with shock. No one had ever fired first at the Keth. No one had ever dared. For a moment, he seemed unable to speak. Then his face twisted with anger. "So be it," he growled. "Destroy them all." The Keth fleet surged forward, 700 ships firing at once. The space around Refuge 7 lit up with weapons fire. Red and orange beams cut through the darkness. Missiles flew like angry swarms of insects. The human fleet scattered according to plan. They did not try to hold a line. They could not. Instead, they broke into small groups, moving fast, staying unpredictable. Lieutenant Shin's tactics were put to the test. Electronic warfare systems active. Shin Murray shouted, jamming their communications. The effect was immediate. The Keth fleet, used to perfect coordination, suddenly found itself blind and confused. Ships that should have been working together began moving separately. Orders got lost. Commanders could not reach their subordinates. The first hour was terrible. 3 human ships were destroyed. Hundreds of lives lost in moments. Park Yuna felt each death like a wound in her own heart. But she could not stop. She could not show weakness. "Keep moving," she ordered. Do not let them pin us down. Hit and run. Make them chase us. In his fighter craft, Ensign Oh Junho flew through hell. He was 24 years old, fresh from the academy. He had never seen real combat before today. Now he was fighting for his life against the greatest military power in the galaxy. His squadron had been given a mission. A Keth supply ship, carrying fuel for the enemy fleet, was behind the main battle lines. If they could destroy it, they could cripple a portion of the enemy forces. Stay close, his squadron leader said through the radio. Watch each other's backs. They flew through the chaos of battle. Keth fighters came at them. Oh Junho fired his weapons, saw an enemy ship explode, felt nothing but cold focus. There was no time for fear. No time for anything but the mission. One by one, his squadron mates fell, their ships destroyed by enemy fire, their voices cutting off mid-sentence. Soon, only 3 fighters remained. Then 2. Then just Oh Junho alone, damaged but still flying. The supply ship was ahead. Huge and slow, barely defended. Oh Junho fired everything he had. Missiles, cannons, everything. The supply ship's hull cracked open. Fire bloomed in its belly. And then it exploded. The blast caught Oh Junho's fighter. Warning alarms screamed. His controls stopped responding. He was going to crash. He reached for the ejection handle. In his last moment before launching himself into space, he opened his radio channel. Worth it, he said. Then he pulled the handle and shot out into the void. 6 hours into the battle, the human fleet had lost 19 ships. More than half their force, but the Keth had lost 40 ships. 40 ships they had never expected to lose. Grand Admiral Kethfer stared at the battle reports in disbelief. This was impossible. These humans were nothing. Insects. How were they still fighting? How were they hurting his fleet? Press the attack, he ordered. Overwhelm them with numbers. But something was wrong. His ships were not responding properly. The human jamming had disrupted too many communication channels. Units were acting on their own. Coordination was falling apart. On the Defiance, Admiral Park Yuna made a decision. The ship was damaged. Fires burned in 3 sections. Half her weapons were offline. But she was still in the fight, and she had one more card to play. Set course for the Keth flagship, she ordered. Commander Kong Taiho turned to look at her. Admiral, that is suicide. No, Park Yuna said. It is a message. We are going straight at them. We are showing them that we are not afraid, that we will never stop. The Defiance turned toward the Keith flagship. Its engines burned at full power. It flew directly into the heart of the enemy fleet, taking hit after hit. Shields failing, hull cracking, but never stopping, never slowing down. Kethfer watched the human ship coming. A small vessel, broken and burning, flying straight at him as if it meant to ram his flagship. He could destroy it with a single order. But something made him pause. What kind of creatures were these? What kind of madness drove them? The Defiance passed within weapons range of the flagship. It fired everything it had left. The shots barely scratched the giant ship's shields. But that was not the point. The point was that they tried. The point was that they refused to give up. Park Yuna stood on her burning bridge, smoke filling the air, sparks falling around her, and she smiled. Come on, she whispered to the enemy she could not see. Come try to break us. We dare you. For the first time in his long career, Grand Admiral Kethfer felt something he had never felt before. Something strange and uncomfortable. Something that weakened his certainty. Doubt. 48 hours? That was all the time they had. Admiral Park Yuna looked at the clock on her desk and felt the weight of every second. She was in the war room of the Defiance. Maps of the star system covered the walls. Officers moved around her, talking quickly, making plans. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone was afraid. But fear did not stop them from working. Lieutenant Shin Mai-rei stood at the main table. She was young, only 32 years old, but she was the best tactical officer in the fleet. Her fingers moved across the holographic display, showing ship positions and weapon ranges. "We cannot fight them directly," she said. Her voice was calm, but serious. "Their ships are bigger, their weapons are stronger. If we try to match them shot for shot, we will lose in the first hour." Commander Kong Taiho crossed his arms. "Then what do you suggest?" Shin Murray pulled up a new image. "Our ships are smaller, yes, but they are also faster, more agile, and our electronic warfare systems are better than anything the Keth have. They use old technology. They have not needed to improve it because no one has ever really fought them." She pointed to the display. "We use hit-and-run tactics. We confuse their communications. We make them chase shadows. We do not try to destroy their fleet. We try to survive. We try to make this fight so expensive that they decide it is not worth continuing." Park Yuna nodded slowly. "It could work. It is a small chance, but it is a chance." "There is something else," Shin Murray said. She hesitated for a moment. "I have been studying the Keth battle records. They have won every war they ever fought. Every single one. But they won because their enemies gave up. They surrendered. The Keth have never faced an enemy that refused to stop fighting." "What are you saying?" Kong Taiho asked. "I am saying they do not know how to fight someone who will not quit. That is our advantage. We just have to be more stubborn than they are." Park Yuna almost smiled. Humans are very good at being stubborn. While the fleet prepared for battle, the Admiral went down to the planet. She needed to see the people she was fighting for. She needed to remember why this mattered. The Velith settlement was in a valley surrounded by green hills. It looked peaceful. Children played in the streets. Families sat together outside their homes. For the first time in their lives, these people were free. Park Yuna met with Elder Vesora, the leader of the refugees. The Velith were smaller than humans, with blue skin and large dark eyes. Vesora was old, her skin wrinkled and faded, but her eyes were bright and full of wisdom. "Admiral," the elder said, "we have heard what you did. What you said to the Keth." She reached out and took Park Yuna's hands in her own. "No one has ever stood up for us before. No one has ever said no to the Empire." "It was the right thing to do," Park Yuna said. "The right thing is often the hardest thing." Vesora's voice was soft. "My people have been slaves for 800 years. I was born in chains. My mother was born in chains. Her mother before her? We forgot what freedom felt like. We forgot that we deserved it." She looked up at the sky, at the stars beginning to appear in the evening light. "Then we heard about humans. A species that had never been conquered. A species that believed every person should be free. We thought it was a story, a dream. But it was real." "It is real," Park Yuna said. "And we will fight to keep it real." Avsora squeezed her hands. "Let me help you. I know things about the Keth. I lived among them my whole life. I know their weaknesses." For the next hour, the elders shared everything she knew. The Keth were powerful, yes, but they were also arrogant. They believed they could not lose. They had rigid command structures. Every decision had to come from the top. If their communications were disrupted, their officers would not know what to do. "They have never fought someone who surprised them," Vesora said. "Surprise them, Admiral. Show them something they have never seen before." Back on Earth, Prime Minister Cho Dae-sung faced a different kind of battle. The Coalition Council was in chaos. Representatives from the colonies were shouting at each other. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to run. "This is madness," one representative yelled. "We cannot fight the Keth Empire. They will destroy us." "Give them what they want," another said. "Give them the Velith. It is not our problem. Why should humans die for aliens?" Prime Minister Cho stood up. He was not a tall man, but when he spoke, everyone listened. He had led humanity through hard times before. He would lead them through this. "Listen to yourselves," he said. His voice was quiet but strong. "You are asking me to hand over innocent people to be slaves. You are asking me to betray everything we believe in, everything we are." He looked around the room. What kind of humanity survives by sacrificing innocence? If we abandon these people today, what does that make us? If we let fear rule us, Are we even worth saving? The room was silent. I will not give the order to surrender, Chodasung said. I cannot, because if I do, we will survive, but we will have lost ourselves. We will have become the kind of people who let evil win because fighting it is too hard. He walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Millions of people living their lives, trusting their leaders to protect them, to make the right choices. Admiral Park is right, he said. The line is drawn at Refuge 7. We will not move it. We will fight. And whatever happens, we will be able to look at ourselves in the mirror and know that we did not abandon people who needed us. On the Defiance, Commander Kung Tai-ho finished counting their forces. Ships were still arriving from the colonies. Volunteers who had heard the news and came to help. When he walked onto the bridge, he looked tired but determined. Final count, Admiral, he said. 37 ships. Against their 700, Park Yuna nodded. She had known the numbers would be bad, but hearing them out loud still hurt. The odds are impossible, Kung Tai-ho said. Then we will make new odds, Park Yuna replied. He smiled, just a little. You really believe we can win? Park Yuna was quiet for a moment. I believe we can show the galaxy what humans are made of. I believe we can inspire others. I believe that even if we lose this battle, we can plant a seed that will grow into something the Keth cannot destroy. She looked at the stars through the viewport. And yes, old friend, I believe we might just surprise everyone, including ourselves. The clock kept ticking. 24 hours remained. The fleet was ready. The people were ready. History was about to be made. 3 months had passed since the battle. The scars remained. Admiral Park Yuna stood in the medical bay of a station orbiting Earth. The room was quiet, except for the soft beeping of machines. In a bed near the window, Inseno Junho lay recovering from his injuries. He had spent 2 days floating in space before a rescue ship found his escape pod. He had almost died, but he had survived. Admiral, he said when he saw her. He tried to sit up, but she waved him back down. Rest, she said. That is an order. She sat in a chair beside his bed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They did not need to. They both knew what they had been through, what they had lost, what they had gained. Admiral Oh Junho finally said, Was it worth it? Park Yuna thought about the question. 26 ships destroyed. 4,700 lives lost. Friends she would never see again. People who had trusted her and followed her into battle. She looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, 47,000 Velith lived free because of what they had done. Somewhere out there, slaves on 17 worlds were rising up against their masters. Inspired by the Battle of Refuge 7, ask them, she said quietly. Ask the people we saved. Ask the people we inspired. They will tell you. The Keth Empire had not taken the defeat well. In the great throne room on their homeworld, the Emperor himself had demanded answers. How had a minor species humiliated his fleet? How had they killed nearly 100 ships? How had they destroyed the myth that the Keth could not be beaten? Grand Admiral Kethfer had no answers. He had led the largest fleet in recent memory against a handful of human ships. He had outnumbered them 20-1, and he had retreated. The Emperor's punishment was swift and final. Kethfer was executed in front of the entire court. His name was erased from the records of heroes. He became a lesson in what happened to those who failed. But killing Kethfer did not change what had happened. Damage was done. Across the Empire, whispers spread. Humans had fought back. The humans had won. If they could do it, maybe others could too. Within 3 months, slave rebellions erupted on 17 worlds. Some were small, some were crushed quickly. But others grew, others lasted. The fire that humanity had lit was spreading. Observer Kellenth returned to the Moru Federation with her report. She stood before the council of her people and told them what she had seen. She told them about the humans who had challenged an empire. She told them about Admiral Park and Captain Beak. She told them about ensigns and lieutenants who had given everything for people they had never met. We have been neutral for 1,000 years, she said. We have watched empires rise and fall. We have never taken sides. But these humans are different. They fight not for power, not for wealth. They fight for ideas, for freedom, for the belief that every person has value. She paused. I recommend we establish formal relations with the Earth's coalition. Trade agreements, defensive alliances. These humans will shape the future of this galaxy. We should be standing beside them when they do. The Council voted unanimously to accept her recommendation. The Moru Federation became the first major power to recognize humanity as an equal. Others would follow. On Refuge 7, a monument was built. It stood in the center of the valley, where the Velith had made their home. A tall spire of white stone reaching toward the sky. On its surface, carved in letters that would last for centuries, were the names of every human who had died in the battle. 4,700 names. 4,700 people who had given their lives so that others could be free. The dedication ceremony was held on a clear day. The sky was blue. The air was warm. Humans and Velith gathered together at the base of the monument. They came from all over the planet, all over the star system. They came to remember. Admiral Park Yuna was there, wearing her dress uniform. Commander Kung Taiho stood beside her. Lieutenant Shin Murray was there too, her eyes red from crying. And Captain Beek Soyan, recovered from her ejection but still weak, sat in a chair at the front of the crowd. Elder Vasora walked slowly to the monument. She was very old now. Each step seemed difficult, but she refused help. She wanted to stand on her own feet. She wanted to honor the dead properly. She reached the monument and placed her hand against the cold stone. So many names, so many stories that had ended too soon. She turned to face the crowd. Her voice was soft, but in the silence everyone could hear her. For 800 years, she said, my people forgot what freedom meant. We were born in chains. We lived in chains. We expected to die in chains. We thought that was the natural order of things. We thought there was no other way. She paused. Her old eyes moved across the crowd, looking at humans and Velith standing side by side. Then you came. Humans, a species that had never known slavery, a species that believed every person should be free. You did not know us. You had nothing to gain from helping us. But when we came to you asking for shelter, you took us in. And when our masters came to take us back, you said no. Tears ran down her wrinkled blue face. You reminded us what freedom meant. You showed us it was worth fighting for, worth dying for. These people, she touched the monument again. These people gave their lives for strangers, did not ask for thanks. They did not ask for anything. They simply did what was right. She turned to Admiral Park Yuna. You asked nothing from us, but I want to give you something anyway. I want to give you the promise of my people. We will never forget. We'll never let your sacrifice be meaningless. We will carry the torch you lit, and we will pass it on. Freedom will spread. Justice will spread because of you. The crowd was silent. Then slowly the Velith began to sing. It was an old song from before their people were enslaved. Song of hope and courage. A song that had been forbidden for 800 years. Now they sang it again. Free at last. Admiral Park Yuna listened to the music. She thought about everything that had happened. The impossible odds. The desperate battle. The friends she had lost. The friends she had saved. She walked to the monument and placed her hand on the stone, just as Vethsora had done. She felt the names under her fingers, her people, her responsibility. We did not do this for victory, she said quietly, so only those closest could hear. We did not do it for glory. We did it because it was right, because that is what makes us human. We cannot look away from suffering. We cannot ignore injustice. When people need help, we help. When people need protecting, we protect. She looked up at the sky. Somewhere beyond that blue ceiling, the stars waited. New challenges, new dangers, new people who would need help. The Keth will come back, she said. There will be more battles, more sacrifices. The fight is not over. It may never be over. But that is okay, because we will be there. We'll always be there, standing between the innocent and those who would harm them. She turned back to the crowd. Humans and Velith, standing together under an alien sky. Free people, proud people. People who had looked at the darkness and refused to be afraid. This monument, she said, raising her voice so all could hear, is not just a memorial. It is a promise. A promise that we will remember. A promise that we will continue. A promise that as long as there are humans in this galaxy, freedom will have defenders. The crowd cheered. Humans and Velith embraced each other. Tears flowed freely, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of hope. Commander Kung Tae-ho walked up beside his admiral. He looked at her with respect and something like wonder. "What now?" he asked. Park Yuna smiled. It was the first real smile she had allowed herself in months. Now she said, "We build. We grow stronger. We make alliances. Prepare for whatever comes next." She looked at the monument one last time. At the names of the fallen, at the price of freedom. And when the next challenge comes, she said, "We meet it the same way we met this one. Together. With courage. With principle. With the stubborn human belief that right is worth fighting for, even when you cannot win." The sun set over Refuge 7. The stars came out, one by one. And somewhere in that vast darkness, a galaxy that had thought it knew the rules of power was learning something new. Humanity had arrived. Nothing would ever be the same. 12 hours. The battle had lasted 12 hours. Both sides were bleeding. But something was changing. Something no one had expected. The human fleet had lost 24 ships. Nearly 2/3 of their force, but the Keth had lost 93. 93 ships destroyed by a species they had called weak. 93 ships that would never return home. More importantly, the galaxy was watching. Every species with the technology to receive signals was tuned in to the battle. They watched the tiny human fleet stand against the mighty Keth armada. They watched ships burn and fall. They watched humans refuse to surrender. On distant worlds, slaves looked up at screens and saw something they had never seen before. Hope observer Kellenth watched from a neutral ship, far from the battle. She was a diplomat from the Moru Federation, one of the few powers that stayed neutral in galactic politics. Her job was to watch and report. Nothing more. But what she saw was hard to believe. She had studied humans in reports. She had dismissed them as a young species, unimportant, destined to be conquered or absorbed. Now, she was watching them do the impossible. She opened a secure channel to her government. "These humans do not calculate survival the way we do," she said. "They calculate principle. They are willing to die for ideas. This changes everything." On the damaged bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Park Yuna reviewed their situation. It was bad. It's very bad. But they were still alive. "Still fighting, Admiral Commander Kong?" Tae-ho said. His face was covered in soot, and his uniform was torn. "We have 13 ships left. The Keth still have over 600. We cannot keep this up much longer." Park Yuna nodded. She knew the numbers. She knew how this would end. But she also knew that every hour they survived was a victory. Every ship they destroyed was proof that the Empire was not invincible. "There is one more thing we can do," she said quietly. "One more blow that might matter." She pointed to the tactical display. Behind the Keth battle lines, a single large station floated in space. The Keth Mobile Repair Station. It was where damaged ships went to be fixed. Without it, the Keth could not sustain a long campaign. They would have to retreat eventually. "If we destroy that station," Park Yuna said, "we'd change everything. But getting to it would be almost impossible. We would need volunteers. People willing to, I will go." Captain Beak, Soyeon, stepped forward. She commanded the destroyer Indomitable, one of the few ships still in fighting shape. She was a small woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She was 47 years old, and she had spent her whole life serving humanity. "My ship still has full engine power," she said. "Give me 5 ships. We will punch through their lines. We will destroy that station." Park Yuna looked at her old friend. They had served together for 20 years. They had shared meals, shared jokes, shared grief. Now, she was asking Soyeon to give her life. "You know what you were volunteering for?" Park Yuna said. "Yes," Soyeon said simply. "I know, but this is what we came here for. This is why we fight. Not to live forever. To make our lives mean something." Park Yuna felt tears in her eyes. She blinked them away. There was no time for tears. Then go, she said. Go and show them what humans are made of. Captain Beak, Soyan saluted. Then she turned and left the bridge to prepare for her last mission. 5 ships. The Indomitable and 4 others. They formed up at the edge of the human formation and waited for the right moment. When a gap appeared in the Keth lines, they went. They flew like arrows shot from a bow. Fast, straight, unstoppable. Keth ships tried to intercept them. Weapons fire filled the space around them. One ship exploded. Then another. Then a third. The Indomitable kept going. Its shields were gone. Its hull was cracked in a dozen places. Fires burned through its corridors. But Captain Beak Soyan stood on her bridge and pushed her ship forward. All hands, she said over the ship's speaker system. Prepare to abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. That is an order. Her crew obeyed. They knew what she was planning. They did not argue. They just said goodbye and ran for the pods. So White Yon stayed at the helm. The repair station was ahead. Close. So close. A 4th ship in her group was destroyed. Now it was just her, alone, flying a dying ship toward an impossible target. She could see the station clearly now. It was huge, like a small moon made of metal. Keth ships were rushing to defend it, but they were too slow. Too late, Soyan smiled. She thought about her life, her service, her friends, the people she had saved, the people she had lost. It had been a good life, a meaningful life. For humanity, she whispered. Then she set the collision course and ejected herself into space. The Indomitable hit the repair station at full speed. The explosion was visible from every ship in the system, a ball of fire and light that outshone the stars. When it faded, the station was gone. Nothing remained but floating debris. Grand Admiral Kethfer stared at the destruction. His repair station, his supply chain, his ability to maintain this campaign, all gone, destroyed by one small ship. One human. He realized something terrible. He could still win this battle. He had enough ships to overwhelm the humans. But then what? His fleet would be damaged. He would have no way to repair it. Other enemies would smell weakness. Other species would see what the humans had done and wonder if they could do the same. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Keth Empire had been hurt, really hurt, by a species they had dismissed as nothing. On 17 Keth slave worlds, people watched the battle. They saw the repair station explode. They saw the Keth fleet hesitate, and they began to whisper to each other. If the humans could fight back, maybe they could too. On the Defiance, Admiral Park Yuna watched the explosion fade. She knew what it meant. She knew what it had cost. Find Captain Beak's escape pod, she ordered. Get her home, Commander Kong. Taiho nodded. Already searching, Admiral. We will find her. Park Yuna looked at the Keth fleet. It was still huge. Still dangerous? But something had changed. The enemy ships were not pressing forward anymore. They were holding position, waiting. They are uncertain, she said quietly. They do not know what to do now, Admiral, Lieutenant Shin Murray said. Incoming transmission from the Keth flagship. Park Yuna straightened her torn uniform, wiped the blood from her face, stood tall despite her exhaustion. Put it through, she said. Grand Admiral Kethfer's face appeared on screen. He looked tired, old. For the first time, he looked like someone who had been in a real fight. Human, he said slowly. You have surprised us? I did not think it was possible to be surprised anymore. I was wrong. Park Yuna said nothing. She just waited. This is not over, Kethfer continued. The Empire does not forget. The Empire does not forgive. We will return, and next time, we will not underestimate you. Park Yuna allowed herself a small smile. We will be here, she said. We will always be here. The transmission ended, and slowly, incredibly, the Keth fleet began to turn. 700 ships, or what remained of them, pulling back, retreating, The bridge crew watched in stunned silence. Then someone cheered. Then everyone was cheering, crying, hugging each other. They had done the impossible. They had held. Admiral Park Yuna did not cheer. She thought about the ships they had lost, the people who had died, the cost of this victory, if it even was a victory. But she also knew something else. She knew that today had changed the galaxy forever. Nothing would ever be the same. The myth of Keth invincibility was dead, and humanity had killed it.